Wholeness, everyone, and welcome to another episode of weMEDITATE. I am your host, Ahmad Brown, and we have a very great, awesome show tonight. For today's show, or tonight's show, we will be talking about the Sacral Chakra. The Sacral Chakra. And so dealing with the Sacral Chakra, I'm going to deal with a little bit of mythology wrapped behind it, how it influences or affects the body, the particular flow of energy, and of course, how you can maximize all of this particular knowledge for your own benefit. So really just getting right into it, let's talk about the Sacral Chakra. For one, the Sacral Chakra, the color is orange. As we can see here, decked out a little bit. You'll see a recurring theme that you'll pick up on, that I'm always going to match my wardrobe with the particular chakra. One of the reasons why you may do so is because it actually helps you harness that particular energy or stay in that particular vibration or frequency of energy. Simply put, everything that's on the inside is also on the outside. As above, so below. So if I'm going to talk about a sacral chakra, it would be my best opportunity to put on a orange chakra color. So yes, the orange chakra or the sacral chakra. For this particular chakra, it deals with our sexual aspects. Our sexual energy, our reproductive energy. If we know anything about the root chakra is at the base of our spine or in the seat of our pants, but the sacral chakra is the one that's right above. And this one right above is right below our little navel area, and it energizes our reproductive system. Now, one may ask why it does so. Is because it's actually tied into a number of reasons. From one, mythology. As far as the creation of like the worlds and creations of the body, but also for your emotional and physical capacity. Again, the particular chakras are inside of your body and connected to your endocrine glands and your nervous system, and simply route energy through your body so that it can charge up and make the certain aspect of your body function. So again, dealing with reproductive system, that is why it is in your navel area. Because, again, I'm not going to advocate sexual activity for those who may be watching who've never done so. But for those who have, you know what a thrusting motion is and where that particular movement takes place in your pelvic area. So it is your actual sacral chakra that is powering that pelvic area that lets you move back and forth in a particular vibration or frequency that can put you in an activity that might cause euphoria via orgasm or reproduction in a new life. So again, that's a part of the whole understanding of this particular chakra, and I will get to that in a moment. But first, let's deal with how it all affects the body from a mythology standpoint. Esoterically speaking, again, knowing that the universe is inside of your body and the external universe that we're seeing is only a response to it, the sacral chakra is actually the energy of the moon. Now, one may ask, why is that so? Why is it the energy of the moon? It is the energy of the moon because, again, if we're looking at it geographically, if we are here on planet Earth, meaning our root chakra, the chakra that is connected to the Earth, the next chakra, being our sacral chakra, is then connected to the closest celestial body. And a celestial body meaning, if you look out into space, the orbs that are around Earth, Venus, Mars, Saturn, those places, the sun, the closest celestial body is the moon, literally by proximity. So, in the same notion of proximity of the external universe, the same thing takes place internally in your body as well. So, that is why the moon is considered to be connected to this particular wavelength of energy that is inside of your body. Now, understanding this, we can get into a little urban legend before we even get into the mythology. If you ever heard, particular songs that talk about the full moon, or particular movies that deal with werewolves and how they transform during the full moon. This actually deals with the function that the moon has on the Earth. Because again, the moon is the closest celestial body, it actually has a gravitational pull on the Earth. So meaning when the Earth moves and then the moon moves around it, wherever the moon moves, the particular energy that the moon has is always responding and bouncing back and forth between the Earth. And so as it moves, it's just pulling and pushing, pulling and pushing, pulling and pushing. So that's so wherever it may be in proximity to where you are will affect how that energy is flowing to you. So let's just say you are in the presence of a full moon, meaning that the moon is literally directly above your head based on your geographical location. The moon has full gravitational access or full gravitational pull to right where you are, meaning that the energy of the moon is being shot down right at you. And so because it is doing so, it gives you certain changes in your vibrational frequency. It actually raises the vibrational frequency because the connection is stronger. And that's why it goes back into like urban legends and urban myths about saying when the full moon is out, if you're a person of a meek and mild character or a person who doesn't like to get into trouble, you might want to stay indoors, because when the full moon is out, that's when all of the bad people come out. Or that's when the freaks come out at night, as they like to say in music. This is actually because, again, as scientifically proven, the gravitational pull of the moon affects the body. But how does it affect the body? It affects the body because the body is made of water. Again, scientifically proven that the body is 70% water. This same organic being, your bones, your skin, your nervous system, all of your senses that are contained inside of this body, they are no more than chemical makeups or chemical arrangements of water. And so if the moon controls water or affects the waves of water, like they say, go to a beach at night when it's a full moon, the waves will be crashing extremely hard or extremely violent. These waves do the same thing in your body. You have an intense amount of wavelength energy resonating and crashing and spilling because you are now right under the presence and influence of the moon. So if you are a person who is out of balance in your particular sacral chakra, you may have intense influences or intense urges to do things that may seem out of character. You might want to have some particular sexual encounters that you may never thought about. You may want to join up with that one group of friends that are always doing unsavory things and go do some unsavory things with them when the full moon is out. Or you may just be in balance or out of balance on the other end and want to stay indoors because you could feel your energy being resonating out of control, and you are afraid to lose that control. Regardless of it, whichever imbalance you may see in the world or you may see in yourself, you could always balance it and learn how to harness this particular energy. And so if you are in a very good balanced state, when the full moon comes, you will actually receive what the full moon has for you, and you will receive the connection based on your vibrational frequency or your vibrational connection with your ability to reproduce, meaning your ability to create in the world. This is why it's actually taught that the moon is the processing cycle of your reaping and sowing period, meaning that every full moon cycle, based on your alignment of energy, based on how you conducted yourself through that entire moon cycle, through that entire month, you will reap what you have sown. So if you've been extremely active in working hard towards producing whatever goal that you have, when the full moon cycle comes, you will actually reap that energy in return in the form of some change. Let's just say, something very practical. You may be looking for a job and you're currently unemployed. Let's say the last moon cycle passed, and since then you've been diligently applying for jobs. You've been sending out positive energy. You've been expecting the new job to come. By the time the new moon cycle has come, you have increased your chances of getting a job, and so when the new moon cycle finally arrives, your chances of getting one will be very, very maximized. All right. Let's say if you do not even get the job, you may finally connect with someone who opens a door for you so you can go in a whole new direction. It's very, very practical, because we have to understand that when we put out energy, when we put in energy into the earth, we plant seeds, so to speak, seeds of ideas or seeds of physical labor. In due time, they will take root, and then they will blossom. And so the blossoming period is when the new moon cycle comes, and then the seeds from heaven, so to speak, they come and trickle down, and they water the thing that you have planted, the initiative that you have planted into the earth, and it will give you what you have made. So that's why it is very important for you to always stay on task, always be focused on producing something with this sacral energy, so that you can get more out of life. And this particular use of energy, again, is using this sexual energy internally to help propel you forward, as opposed to continuously using it externally so that you can please yourself and please your ego. So again, this basic scientific principle about the gravitational pull of the moon, how it ties into mythology, even goes further beyond the whole reaping and sowing period. It actually goes into that whole feeding of the ego, or feeding of your propulsion of motion. Again, dealing with the chakra, knowing that the chakras are the interpretation or the function of Kundalini force. If anyone knows anything about Kundalini, you know Kundalini rises. It's an energy that rises. It comes from the root of your spine or your base chakra, your root chakra, and it eventually rises through each chakra all the way to your crown so you can connect with the universal consciousness. Now, literally speaking, that whole proximity begins to take place. So you are trying to raise your Kundalini. You start on the earth. You raise your Kundalini as your first initiative to reach the moon. This first initiative is your first cause or your first opportunity to attempt to raise your Kundalini. And it is very important that you master this raising of Kundalini, because most likely on your first attempt, you will fail. We've seen it actually in movies. If you've ever seen The Matrix, the first Matrix, Neo actually practiced it right before our eyes, and we may not have even seen it. So easy to miss. You know, he took the red pill, the root chakra pill, to crack open the chakra and show him the other side of reality, or show him what's really going on. Once he was finally conditioned enough to experience it, they injected him back into the Matrix so he could first use his power, his first use of Kundalini power. And his first use was exhibited when he was asked to jump across a building with Morpheus. And Morpheus said, "You have unlimited power, why don't you use it?" And so what happened, even though Morpheus was the one and he came and saved the world and all of that, him being this quote-unquote perfect individual who has aligned chakras, in his first attempt to raise his Kundalini to the first section of energy, he what? He leapt off the building and he plummeted to the earth and he failed. This is traditionally what happens with the human body when understanding our Kundalini force. Practically speaking, this is what happens when we usually try to go out into the world with a first initiative or a first idea. If anyone has ever tried to go and do anything with their life, some of us get lucky, of course, but the vast majority of us have to practice over and over and over again and perfect the craft before we even produce any worthy outcome. Let's just say you want to be a painter and you've never painted before. The first sketch that you make is not going to be as nice as your 100th sketch. And that's because you have to practice and master it. The same thing is with Kundalini. You have to practice and master how to raise the centrifugal force through your body so that you can get the spiritual intuition that you need. And so in doing so with Kundalini, you raise from the earth to the moon to get your first celestial experience. You now get acquainted with power. You now get acquainted with spiritual power. And this is, again, ties into this whole thing of why it's orange. Is one, because it's just a vibrational frequency, but they've also laced into it culturally, orange being the color of warning. Orange being a color of warning. Why a warning? Because if you now get access to your first initiative of raising your power, and you get to experience this power based on where it is in the proximity of your body, you can actually put yourself in a form of euphoria via orgasm and waste it. You can externalize this particular energy, this most powerful form of energy that you have, and use it to please yourself versus using it to propel yourself. I always like to think about it like this in regard to sexual activity. You know, they say you shouldn't have sex because you may not understand it, or you don't want to have sex too early. I actually believe that is true. Not because of any form of disgrace that may come upon you because you may do it too early, but because you may expose yourself to the most powerful energy that your body has. Your body's most powerful energy is to reproduce. You could replicate yourself in real time. So this particular energy to create, to do the God act, this all-powerful force, can be, you can get drunk off of it. You can literally lose yourself in this particular energy and live for that. And so it is of a caution to raise your energy from your base to your moon, because you can literally get stuck just raising the energy to the first level and being stuck in a pleasure zone, being stuck in a place where you always just get what you want, a place where you always are in desire, a place where you're consumed by this sexual energy as opposed to using it to fuel your fire to get back to the higher realms of your consciousness. Again, dealing with biblical mythology or biblical scripture, in the Pauline scriptures, like the Ephesians, Colossians, those things, he talks about do not be fueled with passion so that you will not burn in lust. Again, though, the New Testament post-Jesus has a very strong preoccupation with sexual activity, of which they actually do not even teach how to master your sacral chakra. All they teach you is how to close it, which is another issue. This particular scripture, or this particular verse, does have truth in it, because this is the place where you don't want to waste your God force. An example of wasting your God force, again, you can call it sketchy if you want, is a person who's had way too many children. This person may be full of love, may be full of care, but because they're irresponsible with their regenerative power, they've now put way too many people on this earth that they cannot even care for. And so because they cannot even care for these people, they've made life harder for one themselves, but also harder for those who are coming after them. And see, we come to this earth to make life easier for those who come after us. And the way we do so is by using our passion energy, our sexual energy, to use it to connect to our divine purpose and not waste it, instead use it. So again, about the use of energy, using it wastefully is feeding of the ego. The ego is the external form of yourself. The ego is the part that fuels your senses so you can see, feel, touch, taste, hear. However, your spiritual body, the internal part of yourself, does not use ego for the external, it uses it for the internal, so you can stay connected to the oneness of all things. The ego is the one that only wants you to connect to yourself and what you want to do. And so you have to make sure that you are not using your divine force energy just to fuel this ego, because when you do so, you will eventually put yourself at fault. And putting yourself at fault leads you to bring yourself out of balance with this chakra, which leads you to shame. Again, look it up. The opposite of or the out of balance chakra is a shameful energy, or a shameful feeling, or a shameful emotion. And you feel this because you have an imbalanced state of that chakra energy transmitting through your bloodstream, or in a either diluted amount or an excessive amount, that causes a chemical imbalance in your body, which makes you feel out of place. Excuse me, which makes you feel bad. All right, that's why when people who are solely convicted about their sexual activity, and then they have sex, and in the act of having sex, they're so full of pleasure and they're all wonderful. They have the orgasm, again, an out of line orgasm, and they get thrust into the heavens, or into the state of euphoria, in an unbalanced light, or unbalanced lens of light that comes down upon them, and their body simply reacts, or their psyche simply reacts to this mismanagement of light that you have exposed yourself to. It's all psychosomatic as well as internally with the body. And if we look at it from this standpoint, we will begin to try, hopefully, to master our sexual energy, to one, have more holistic forms of sex, meaning that you do not share your divine reproductive energy with people who have not aligned theirs, or people who do not operate in a similar vibrational frequency as you. Also, you can temper yourself to focus this energy towards reaching a goal. Like, I could be right now essentially thrusting away at a woman, but I'm rather sit here on this camera because I feel a sacrifice, or I feel a divine purpose or a divine intent to send this energy to you, so that you can maximize yourself and maximize your time just like I am. And so once we all get the message, or once we all get connected, we can all begin to maximize. We can all begin to expand. We can all begin to grow. And then once we grow, we have more control over our power, and then we can finally go spend some time in recreation and please ourselves once again. So again, back about the ego. This ego actually ties into mythology. And this is really cool. It gets kind of deep. So hopefully we can walk through this together. The particular ego, again, is the externalization of your consciousness. It is the outside that you see around you, when you look in yourself and see in a mirror. But it is also the external cosmos in and of itself. Meaning when you look through a telescope and you see the external stars. Or when you watch that TV show that's going on right now, the Cosmos, and how they're explaining how everything happened, as if this is the only form that it exists in. But again, that is the great macrocosm, meaning the great bigger picture outside. But that is no more than a mirror reflection of the great microcosm, meaning inside of your body. So literally every star that you see in the sky is really an external symbol or external reflection of a cell that is literally inside of your body. This first son, the name is actually not Jesus as we understand in the Christian interpretation, which is a scaled down version. This particular name is actually Yaldabaoth. God's first son, our first creation, is Yaldabaoth, again, reality in and of itself. According to Christian mythology, they had adapted Yaldabaoth, the god of fire, or the god of lightning and thunder, or the god of power, the externalization of power, as Yahweh, YHVH. Again, if you have any exposure to the Old Testament, there's a strong preoccupation with the display of power. They were always trying to go into a hill and see God come down in fire. They were always trying other tribes and saying Baal versus Yahweh, whichever one can display the strongest power is the strongest God. And yes, and if you look at it just from a very logical or even a spiritual standpoint, you will see that because of Yahweh or Yaldabaoth, this influence caused the Hebrew people to literally slaughter and slay millions of people because they wanted to see a display of power and pledge their allegiance to it. But this particular display, again, was an external one. It was an external display of power that brought forth destruction to the earth. Now, you have to understand that this is how the ego works, or this is how the ego is fueled inside of us. The ego is the thing that wants or desires to have the physical or external gratification for all things. It is the ego that sees that nice thing in the window that says, I want to buy that. It is the ego that makes you feel bad if you're tied to it closely when you see someone living a better lifestyle or the illusion of a better lifestyle than you, and you bring guilt, again, guilt and shame upon yourself. The same principle, though, comes again from the Yaldabaoth consciousness because it is a childlike consciousness. Being the firstborn of the Almighty, being a replication of Almighty energy and Almighty power, this particular energy or this particular consciousness of reality wanted the power in and of itself. This is where the Hebrew began to adopt the mythology in the book of Isaiah when they say that God was in the heavens and God's first servant or first angel or his closest partner was Lucifer, the light bearer, who brought the light to the heavens or brought the light to the angels before God, meaning he was the one that walked in front of God with a torch of light that was the symbol of the Almighty who is light. This same principle is what they adopted or understood from, again, the ancient cosmologies of Assyrians, Egyptians, Assyrians, things of that nature, of Yaldabaoth. In the book of Isaiah, they say Lucifer got jealous because God was the Almighty, but he wanted the credit for being the Almighty because he carried the external light that people understood most because you could not see God. And so he said, because I have the light and I hold the torch, I should be the one holding or wielding the power. And so again, they talk about the whole war in the heavens. This particular war in the heavens is actually, again, drawn from the Assyrians and the Babylonian stories of Tiamat versus Marduk, which we could talk about in another day, and how Marduk was killed. How Marduk killed Tiamat and cracked her open and then made the earth. Again, talking about this splitting of deities, one dying, sacrificing itself and making the earth whole or healing the earth, which is a second creation. I'll get to it in a second. But with this first creation, it was wreaking havoc because it wanted the power. Just like they say in the book of Isaiah, Lucifer was wreaking havoc in heaven because it was trying to start a war. And so, essentially, he lost the war and was kicked out of heaven and brought down into the earth, the realm of physicality. This is how they adopted the story of Yaldabaoth, meaning that the Almighty, which is all things, birthing upon in and of itself a lesser form of itself called reality, and then reality wanting to take the credit because everything about reality is inside of it. Meaning that everything you experience and that you see is Yaldabaoth. But can you see God? No. But you can see Yaldabaoth. You see, can you see Jesus, so to speak? No. But you can see a Bible and you can see a church. Again, that's not an indictment on the Bible or an indictment on the church, but it's literally having to understand that this is how the same cosmology has been regurgitated or reiterated in a scaled down form. But God, Jesus, and all the things that we think we know are true are way more expansive than how we've interpreted them to be. And so looking at it from these ancient principles and these ancient stories, it gives you a much greater understanding of one, what's going on the planet, but then two, how your body operates based on what's going on in the sky. So again, dealing with this Yaldabaoth consciousness, or like they say, Lucifer, as we would like to say, gets kicked out of heaven, comes down and then makes its influence upon physicality, or its influence upon earth. This is what your ego wants to do. The divinity, or the spiritual side in and of yourself, being the replication of God, is the fullness and wholeness of God, meaning it's just light. It's light, it's sound, it's vibration, it's etheric, it's non-material. You can't see it. You can't really see a person's soul, but look at a person who is alive versus going to a funeral and seeing a person in a casket, versus someone who's asleep. If you see someone who's asleep and they're still alive, you can tell that there's life still in their body. They're just asleep. But look at a dead person. Their hidden energy, or their spirit energy, the thing that you cannot see, you know it is devoid out of the body. That hidden essence, that secret part that is within everybody is now gone, and you see lifelessness. This is what the spirit is. The spirit being life, you can't see. But you can see a body. And the body is fueled by the ego, the external part of yourself. And so Yaldabaoth, being the external part of itself, wants all of the credit because that is what everyone is responding to. When we come down being replications of God into physicality, we start to respond to Yaldabaoth because our senses start to work, which is the external part of ourselves. So we can get stuck in our ego, in the external part of ourselves, and wanting to please our external universe. You know, again, there's nothing wrong with wanting pleasure in life. There's nothing wrong with wanting nice things. There's nothing wrong with wanting to have a comfortable life. However, you can be fueled by these things and try to live a life of excess, or a life of denying others because you want more. A perfect example of a huge ego that makes a cascading effect on the rest of the world is if you look at the Wall Street fallout. You know, there was just a small handful of men who were fueled by greed and ego, again, their passion chakra being raging out of control, taking literally all of the money away from the globe. Again, money is a construct that really shouldn't even exist anyway, but because we've complied into it, it's a part of how the earth now works. But these gentlemen who were already rich, already have excess, already have everything that they essentially want on the planet, take even more. And in doing so, they take from essentially their own selves and make everything harder for everyone else. And see, and that is the illusion of reality. That is the illusion of the ego. Because if you continue to fuel the ego will not stop. And the ego will continue to cause war. And the ego will continue to try to cut other people out so it can have its own place. And so that's why we have to be very, very leery of any form of doctrine or interpretation that wants to exclude somebody from their own divinity. Again, if we take a look at the Bible, Old Testament is strictly about exclusion, strictly about the allegiance to Yahweh, the physical externalization of God, Yaldabaoth. Then it kind of gets peeled back a little bit with Jesus, or as they've written him to be, saying that, you know, the oneness with God is within yourself and you can connect. But after he passes, then we get onto the Pauline scriptures, it goes right back to externalization. Those who are not worthy of the kingdom of God. And then a strong litany of things that people do not qualify for. And this strong litany of things that people do not qualify for never even came out of the things that they said Jesus even said. And so again, dealing with the church, if you ever take that type of logical understanding to the church, most of their moral standards, most of the things that they try to shame you with, being your sacral chakra, are a bunch of moralistic codes written by someone who wasn't even the archetype of the religion in and of itself. So you have to take a step back for a moment and see, one, are you worshiping, so to speak? Worshiping, worship. Worship, again, looking up the definition of words or the origin of words, worship is actually equal to warship, a warship. You are in a war. Again, this war is about reality versus spirituality. This is the Almighty dealing with the childlike consciousness of Yaldabaoth that wants to continue to take the credit. And this is what you experience when you go into worship, go into any form of a sanctuary, and you have this external form of euphoria, where you've now lost control over your body because some external deity has entered in and is taking control over your body. And what does a pirate do? It boards your ship, and then it takes control over your ship, and now that the pirates are on your ship, you have to be complicit with their will as opposed to your own. Now, again, understanding this about a traditional church experience, we've, again, believed that this is a good thing, but the only reason why it's a good thing is because being taken over by this external deity makes us more complicit with the culture that we live in. But when we examine the history and the origins of the culture that we live in, being in the West, we see that it is no more than a modern interpretation of Rome, the same group of people who actually executed the person that is supposed to be the archetype of the religion that you're currently in. Also, the particular religion that you're currently in has a particular doctrine that is the blueprint for the foundation of the moral code of this modern day, which didn't even exist until 300 plus years after the person that was executed, where they elevated him up into the Son of God and literally made Jesus, who, if we want to say, is God in the flesh or whatnot, just like we are God in the flesh and we're no separate from him or on a higher or lower level. But again, dismissing ourselves from this ontological fact or scientific proof of our own special spiritual inheritance, our own spiritual identity, releasing ourselves from that and then lowering ourselves into the Yaldabaoth understanding of this, where there's only one and everything else below it is inferior. And now we have to strive for a sense of perfection and protection when actually we already had it from the moment we were born. So again, you can choose to lower yourself, let a pirate board your consciousness, because you've now made yourself defenseless because you believe that you are nothing, or you are less than, or you are obsolete without Jesus, or obsolete without Christ. And lower those defense mechanisms that were already built up in you, talking about your own spiritual self, and then allow some foreign entity to come and lull you to sleep so that you become a drone who just wants to go and have a job, who wants to just have money, who wants to just buy a house, and who just wants to have a family. Those things are not necessarily bad, but those are not the things that you came here to do. You came here to unleash a purpose. You came on here to bring light into the world. You came here to let the Sacral Chakra energy, that passion of energy that is in you, like the passion of Christ, help you bring the whole world into a higher state of consciousness. But how are you going to bring the whole world into a higher state of consciousness when you spend 40 hours a week mulling away at a job? Now again, there's certain jobs that are good for people or that are good for the betterment of the earth. But for the vast majority of those, it's about the externalization of yourself. And none of those jobs are really about the internalization of divinity, the internalization of spirituality, the internalization of connectedness into all things. It's usually just about you and your paycheck, and can you keep the lights on? Can you make yourself happy? Can you make your husband or wife happy? Or can you make your family happy? Now again, you can focus your energy on all of those things, which isn't necessarily bad, but it is a childlike offspring consciousness that is the first creation that is at fault. And that's what brings it back home to the Christian mythology. As we understand, or as they understand, that the first man, or the first Adam, aka Adam, A-T-O-M, meaning the cells of the body, the first creation of cells of the body, or cells of reality, were at fault because it wanted to create it for itself, Yaldabaoth. However, the second creation, or the second offspring of God, is the salvic principle, the new man, as they like to say, or like I say, Jesus coming down to save the world from the heavens. This particular coming down to save the world from the heavens is the feminine principle, the mother that nurtures the nature. You know, they say nurture versus nature, or nurture and nature concept, and then they say that nature is the man and nurture is the woman. Again, that's the external understanding of the basic principles of the movements of energy, of divine movements of energy. And as these two things combine, we will see that yes, all of us have adolescence, or adolescent thoughts, adolescent activities within us. We all have Yaldabaoth within us, where we do misguided things, or we channel our energy in misguided ways. We take our passion and send it somewhere where it doesn't need to go. However, the mother aspect, or the feminine regenerative principle of the universe, nurtures you. just like it nurtures reality, just like it nurtures Yaldabaoth. Meaning if you go out and make a mistake, you won't deal with the consequence of an early death. The mother will cover you. And the mother will nurture you back and bring you back home and to make you whole and heal you again. And see, and that's why it brings us back to our greater cause, because we come down here to nurture. We come down here to heal the earth. We come down here to be part of the agents of change that heal the consciousness of people. And it's much easier to heal the consciousness of people if we simply just express love and express the light of God versus expressing the confines of religion that say love and light can only be expressed based on a certain set of cultural tools that are no more than a paradigm of thought of adolescence. Because in adolescence it says, well, that's mine. I want it. Let me have it. You've ever seen a toddler fight? Or a toddler with an older or younger brother, and the older younger brother or just another kid will pick up the toddler's toy that the toddler wasn't even paying any attention to. That toddler will see someone touching their stuff that they're not even paying attention to, run over there and try to fight the person and take it back, say, mine. That is the Yaldabaoth. But the mother, like even thinking about it in a normal family, the mother who will see such activity will tell the toddler, you need to share. You weren't even using it, so let someone else have it. That's how we have to operate. We can't be so fueled by this cultural paradigm of Yaldabaoth where we just are so individualized that we only care about ourselves or only care about our direct family unit. You know, we can't interfere in somebody else's life. We can't set someone else straight. In essence, that is the wrong way of looking. That is not sharing. We must share ourselves, meaning that we must share all of our best interests, our best intent, our best will with everyone in the world. No one should be excluded. No one should be in denial of access to the light within themselves. All things should be able to come together based on the nurturing aspect of God that will heal everything, including the things that are grotesque and evil, which is why they still exist. God is not going to wash away them because those things that are grotesque or evil are not necessarily bad. They're just adolescent. And they need to be brought up in consciousness so that they can begin to share. And they can begin to be agents of light for everyone as opposed to light for themselves. So again, all of these things bring back home to the Sacral Chakra because it talks about our passion. So are we going to do our passions and fuel it for external purposes? This Yaldabaoth where we try to get everything we can out of culture, everything we can out of reality? Or are we going to look internally for the divinity and light within ourselves so we can give everything to reality and give it all away, give it all away? But of course, the choice is always yours. So choose wisely. This is your Sacral Chakra. I am Ahmad Brown, and this is We Meditate.